So, to our first case study. In 1987, I was in Moscow, and as usual, going through the bookshops, I saw this package of postcards. And something told me that this is not the usual representation of Yuri Gagarin, the hero of cosmonautics in the Soviet Union. And I bought it, so I still have it. We have to remember that during that time, there was a major change in Russian politics that took place in the 90s. They are called the reformist 90s, and most of the people really hate that period. Then in 2000, Vladimir Putin came to power, and after 2004, he already had established his grip of power. And it is exactly that time when new kind of political representation and the forms of image emerge. So the pack of postcards I was showing is a bit earlier, but I have included it because I think it is one of the ways to see how in Russian culture certain things can be really taken to extreme or to be stretched into a kind of hyperbolic form. These imagospheric events that I'm going to talk about, they of course happen everywhere. But in this case, Russia has been a very good example. So Vladimir Putin was re-elected. There was the second Chechen war in the middle. A new agency has been formed, press and mass communication, as it was before. Baltic states have been incorporated into NATO, and NATO was seen as a threat again to Russia. And 2005, several new youth organizations were established, and one of them, particularly powerful then, was Nashi with 120,000 members. If it is true what they talk about it was concentrated around Moscow, so that the youth organization, members of the youth organization, could be brought into city center for rallies or for demonstrations within 2 hours. So these are the changes that start 2004. But this nice pack of postcards in 87 was a kind of warning sign or a kind of wake-up call. Something in the sphere of images is happening. And now after some time we can say that this particular way of describing or depicting Yuri Gagarin, I think, is a designed hybrid image. It definitely is highly poetic, and it also includes something that we will later on call as explosion of meanings, which in the current state of internet and being online has reached enormous quantities. So 87, and if we look at the postcards, I've grouped them slightly mythological on the left-hand side and more historical on the right-hand side, and then something happening in between. And when I first looked at the envelope of the package, I thought this is a religious image, although there is nothing religious about it. And when we look closer to it, we actually find out that when communist revolution took over in Russia, there was large layer of people who were working in icon painting. And that icon painting was, of course, forbidden. The religion was highly forbidden because the communist society built their own religion. But nevertheless, in the form of nesting dolls or matryoshka dolls or these papier-mâché boxes, this kind of representation lived on somewhere. It was not visible. It was invisible, but when there was a possibility, it started to emerge. If we look at the representation of Moscow, we see it, well, we can describe it. It's in the middle, there are several guys in suits, although the depiction of the suits already, if we look at the trousers, something from the maybe 18th, 17th, 18th century. Then we see several national costumes. Then we see the cosmonauts, young communists, either the communist youth or pioneers. Well, probably they are pioneers. Then the national states, probably of the Soviet states from the Soviet Union. But all of them are ordered in some kind of regulatory way. They are not mixed up. They are depicted in certain groups. Then what is highly interesting for me is how they depict the Kremlin. The space is still there, but the space has been pushed, flattened. We can clearly see the wall around Kremlin, the pentagrams flying above it in the sky, the Lenin mausoleum, but everything has been pressed into a image that operates both spatially and non-spatially at the same time. If we compare it with 15th century icon from Novgorod, we can see several similarities. The central part is there, definitely. The groups of clergy and other dignitaries forming the part of the procession are definitely described in these groups. And again, the space is extremely interesting. It is the so-called reverse perspective that is so common in Byzantine and also Russian Orthodox icons. We see in both sides the axonometric reverse perspective elements, and if we imagine ourselves, we see like the scene from two different viewpoints at the same time. So the space becomes unified in our mind, and if I look at it, for me the space turns circular at the back because we look at it from the far angle there and far angle from here, like our eyes would go out and then focus in the middle. With a group of people here definitely creating another half circle or slight curve in front, giving the central part of the icon really powerful spatial imagination, although it is not really depicted there. A similar type of icon building we can see in Horezu Monastery in Romania. It's a bit later, but basically it does in a way contain the same type of elements. It is the groups of people who have been named in the Slavonic church language. For instance, in the first part here we can see Hor Myrtyron, which I will translate as the choir or the group of martyrs. Up there, probably prophets, and further on in the left, which is not depicted in the image, is also probably men and women, Hor Gynaikon, and the others I have not really translated. So the depiction of celebration in Moscow in front of Kremlin clearly represents a sacred or magical space that isn't there by default. It was unimaginable in '87 that this is described as icon space, although as soon as I look at the images, I can see the icon space very, very clearly. Of course, the childhood of Yuri Gagarin, which clearly depicts Madonna with a child in a specific circular mandala form. And then the political parts, the building of the rockets, which is given in a fantastic form, but the rockets are there. They are the real depiction of rockets. And then rather interestingly, down there on the right-hand side, we can see imaginable revolutionary guards, probably the war in the middle, which of course he did not take part in because he was born after the war, and then the red flag, communist Soviet flag with a hammer and sickle. And of course, when then it was unimaginable that Yuri Gagarin could be depicted in this half religious, half mythological, half magic way, this has happened today, and the rockets are really whisked and blessed by clergy. The clergy has taken over the possibility that was depicted in 87 in rather interesting way for me. The second case could be about the Georgian ribbon, if we translate it. It is the Georgievskaya lentochka, the ribbon of two colors dedicated to the archangel Georgios, or George, and that is today highly recognized mark in Russia and in the political movements who accept the politics of Russia. And it was started in 90s. It was started by the news agency RIA Novosti and by one of the youth organizations, which acronym is there. It was proposed that this is to commemorate the victory. And it was not commercial nor political action. They proposed this. So, as it was so popular, I looked back into the history of it and decided to find out how has it come into being. In 1769, Catherine the Great, the Emperor of Russia, had started it. It is believed that the imperial flag of gold and black was the source material for the colors. In 1921, Alexander Kolchak, who was the non-communist general in civil war in Russia, it remained into the use in the Russian Imperial Army. Later on, it was said that it was used by Vlasov, the anti-Russian war leader and fascist later on, which then became a kind of paradox that the colors of fascist ribbon could really be reused as a celebration of victory. But this was the case. In 2000, Putin re-established the colors, and in 2010 it was the law was even amended. And we can look briefly at how it developed. The St. George's Order was only for the highest officers. Then for the soldiers, there was a medal with the same type of ribbon. Then there was Sword of Bravery that was gilded and an important object of distinction. And only in 1942 it comes again to be used. And it doesn't come as the ribbon of St. George. It comes as a ribbon of guard, Guardia, which means the elite guard. And it comes from the Marine Corps, where it was taken into use. In 1943, already before the war, the Order of Glory was established, which had the same type of colors. Of course, the colors everywhere slightly change, so it's rather difficult to make the distinction. But as an image, I think there is no distinction between these colors of the orders and medals. 1945, the Medal of Victory over the Germany, which already had the bas-relief of Stalin, and the text means our thing is right, or we do it right, and down there is we won. That is the simple connection to Stalin. So in a way, all these different colors and all these different signs of distinction come together in one of these combinations, and then after that have been taken as the sign of celebrating victory, but also celebrating the Russian imperial might. I think it has been actually used before, and within the film Battleship Potemkin, done by Sergei Eisenstein in 1925, the military or the Marines of the battleship had this color on their Marine caps. But of course the film was black and white. So I told myself that this cannot be the case. The posters did not have that kind of acceptance, but gradually I was digging in deeper, and in 1950 the colored poster of it was already there. And then further on it was of course the film was a very powerful film. As you see, it has already done the imagospheric deed, presenting to the world something that there really was not. The Tsarist massacre on the Odessa steppes never really took place, but after the film everybody believed it to be there. It's not to say that Tsarist government did not have massacres, but definitely in that form it is the artistic, poetic image. But then there is the old poster, so it might be from 1925 where the Georgian ribbon has really been used. In 1925, Lev Trotsky wrote this, and he's talking about cinema, of course. This weapon which cries out to be used is the best instrument for propaganda, technical, educational, and industrial propaganda. Propaganda against alcohol, propaganda for sanitation, political propaganda, any kind of propaganda you please. A propaganda which is accessible to everyone, which is attractive, which cuts into the memory, and may be made a possible source of revenue, even, he says, in the article Vodka, the Church, and the Cinema. So in this short excursion into the history, we see that the simple two-colored ribbon can really have a multiple of meanings, of imperial might, military courage, revolutionary attachment, even the Stalinist terror, if you like that, is a part of it, and definitely also post-Soviet nostalgia to the times.